Chapter 14. All right. Chapter 14, this is one that I really just kind of want to give you the real 10,000-foot view. What we're going to be talking about is kind of the nitty gritty of the loan, okay? The loan that goes into financing a home, okay? So home purchases often require a down payment and a loan, okay? This is just the nature of the beast. People do not have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting around in a bank account, and they typically need to buy a home with a loan and then give that lender a mortgage to the home that they're purchasing, and a note, which is a promise to repay and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So this one, and again, this is what we're talking about, is we're talking about the loan. Okay. So the loan will have a principal and interest, okay? And now also something that has to happen is this. There's usually an appraisal done with the home that you are going to be using as collateral, basically as a promise to repay for that loan. And they need to make sure that the loan to the value of that home is correct. The loan to value ratio is correct. So oftentimes, there will be an appraisal that will be involved in this, and there has to be a loan to value ratio. Okay, it has to equate to that. So they'll sometimes abbreviate that loan to value amount as LTV. Okay, so if you see LTV, that's just another fancy way of saying loan to value. And now equity, here's what equity is. It's the difference between the current market value. I don't like that they didn't put market value in there. Market value and amount owed, okay? Because value could be, looked at several different ways. So market value and what is owed. So what you can actualize if you were to sell the property, okay? And the amount that you owe, okay? I have a home that's $400,000, okay? That's roughly about what it would sell for. I have a $200,000 loan. I have $200,000 worth of equity in the home. Now let's talk a little bit about interest, okay? Interest is basically a charge for the use of money, okay? There is an amortization schedule. You'll probably see that on the test, amortization schedule. There are ways to study for that and to really educate yourself on how an amortization schedule is used. However, you might get one question on it, and they will give you an amortization schedule. In my opinion, if you go through the math section of the book, you could probably get a good sense for how to utilize an amortization schedule in a multiple choice question. But I really wouldn't wrap your head too much around that. I wouldn't stress about that because it is something that I find in my teaching is a little more complicated for some of the students. So it's something that you might just want to pass on. But an amortization schedule question is something that I have seen come up on the test a little more frequently. 2018, this is Q4 2018. So keep in mind that while you're watching this. So that might change for you guys. So points, let's talk about what a point, okay? This is something that if they ever refer to, okay, in chapter 13, I said to you guys that you have to know that the money is not the mortgage. Chapter 13, money is not the mortgage, okay? Chapter 14, if you walk away with anything from here, 1 point equals 1% of the loan. So if they're taking out $100,000, so let me trace back a little bit. Purchasing a home for $100,000, they are putting $20,000 down. They are going to be paying 1 point at closing towards their closing costs. What are they paying? Now, a lot of people just take that $100,000, which is what they're paying for the home, and say, oh, 1 point is 1%. So they take 1% of that and they write it down. And that's it. Good, done. No, that's wrong. It's 1% of the loan. So you have to deduct that down payment. It's an $80,000 loan, right? $800 would be the answer. And here's the thing with the test, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you will have the wrong answer on the test. So you will have the wrong answer on the test. They will put $1,000 there. So if you work the question the wrong way, they'll give you that answer too. So definitely be very, very, very careful, very mindful of that. Okay, 1 point, 1% of the loan. Okay. Now that what they usually do with the points is they use that as buy downs. You'll see that also come up in questions. They'll talk to you about buy downs of interest rates, things like that. So points would be a method for some borrowers to be paying down lower interest rates. And again, that's just a mechanism inside of the loan mortgage process that they could ask you questions on. But as you're going through chapter 14, again, I would just really kind of brush through this chapter. Let's talk about some of our conventional and our guaranteed loans. So conventional loans are just between a borrower and a lending institution. Okay, nothing fancy there. They may require PMI if you do not put 20% down. That's where you come up with that magic 20%. If you put down less than 20% down, okay, on a conventional loan, there may be a requirement. Actually, let me rephrase that. There will be a requirement for PMI to be paid. Okay. Now, if at some point the loan to value amount, because that's what it is that loan to value has to be 80% or less. Okay. If that loan to value amount changes, okay, and the loan that you took out is now 80% or less than what the value of the home is, an appraised value, then you could actually have your PMI taken off. And that's what happens usually in a good market. If you put down an amount less than 20%, but then your home has increased and gained equity because of the market activity, you can have your lender reassess that and potentially have the PMI payments taken out of your monthly payments. Okay. Again, that's what it's basically saying to you in that third bullet point. Borrowers may be able to drop PMI because it all has to do with that loan to value amount, the LTV. Got to be 80% or less, right? So that was conventional loans. Not much really fancy about that. FHA loans. FHA loans. So here's what these are. These are basically loans that you're going to be able to put a lot less down on. They're insured by the Federal Housing Administration. They do require mortgage insurance premium. And you may be able to finance some of the closing costs too. So basically, this is for someone who's looking for an option to get into home ownership, have that American dream, but might not have the liquidity to have a conventional loan, or they might also have some credit issues, things like that. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty as to why an FHA loan, but that has to do with if you're sitting down speaking with the loan officer, the lender, and the buyer, and they say that this is the best route for them out of all the programs that are out there. And here's the thing, there's a boatload, changes every day. So that's why I really don't get into the nitty gritty. And this is one of those things that know your strengths, know your weaknesses. And that's why I really try to give you the 10,000 foot view on this, because there's some things in here that you really don't need to know the finer minutia on, because there's a lot, 13, 14, 15, long chapters, a lot of words, not a lot that they're going to really be quizzing you on the test. So really don't worry about that too much. Now, the last one would be our VA loan. Okay, this is guaranteed by the Department of Veteran Affairs. Okay, these are intended for owner occupied. You can't be getting a VA loan for investment properties. Okay, VA loans. So these are guaranteed by the Department of Veterans Affairs. They're not insured by them. Okay, these are zero down payment requirements. Okay, for these loans. So this is 100% financing. It has the eligibility requirement of you having served in the armed forces, honorably discharged, and you're retired, something like that. So if you're active or honorably discharged, you can use this. Now, here's what happens. You can only have one out at a time, or a certain amount, because it has to be owner occupied, right? There is an assumability aspect to it, where this could be assumed by another buyer if they meet the eligibility requirement of being having served in our armed forces. Okay, So that is another interesting thing to take into consideration. All right. So VA, that's only open to our armed services individuals. And that, my friends, is chapter 14. Chapter 14.